Meghan Markle has given an interview to People magazine, and it's as vacuous and nonsensical as you might think. She exaggerates things to the point of absurdity. She creates weird scenarios that just don't seem to be based in reality or just kind of boggles the mind that this could actually happen. She's sort of vague about her relationship with Harry. She brings up the kids, talks about her title. I want to be Sussex and known as Meghan Sussex, I guess. I'm not entirely sure. Overall, it's just a ridiculous piece. It's so absurd. You just got to wonder the people writing it's like, do you guys realize how ridiculous this sounds? And I'm sure they do, but they don't care because People magazine is just going to publish anything Harry and Meghan give them. And of course, the cover image of her, I think, is awful. It's truly an awful picture, especially without any lip color. She looks pretty bad here. And so we are going to delve into this piece because there's a lot of interesting nuggets and tidbits that we can glean in the lead up to her series with Meghan, which is launching on March 4th. This is probably when this video will come out. And we have another one already running. So much going on. So let's go ahead and get into it. But if you haven't been to Royal News Network before, hello, my name is Brittany. I provide compelling royal commentary. So please hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you back. And I did want to say real quick here that we do have an upcoming trip to the south of France. So if you enjoy talking about all this stuff and want more and want to see Monaco and Nice and so many different things, check out the link up above. We still have spots available. It'll be in September from the 25th through the 30th, and it'll be wonderful and a magnificent little getaway in the early fall. Just check it out. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. I've heard the weather is wonderful that time of year. All right, guys, so let's get into it. This might be a bit long, but I actually was doing an interview with Dan Wooten, which I'll link here up above and down below. And we were talking, and he was doing a commercial break, and he texted me, or his actually his producer got on, and he goes, "Hey, there's a new People magazine out with Meghan. Go check it out." So we did. We talked about it, but I thought it would be fun for us to go over together because it was kind of so rushed. I didn't get really a chance to react. I reacted at the moment, basically. I read some of it, sort of like skimmed it really quickly. So it's good to go over the nuts and bolts of this craziness because oh boy, is there crazy here. So let's begin. Meghan Markle's most intimate interview in years. Because, she did the wild about Harry thing that the palace got really upset about because she was not supposed to do that because she's always wanted the spotlight and was frustrated that the palace wouldn't let her have the spotlight the way she wanted to. Yes. It says Harry, the kids, and getting real about her learning curve. Oh, you mean her massive series of errors in creating her company and business? Yeah, that's not a learning curve. That's just sheer stupidity, to be quite honest. At her level, with her resources, those type of mistakes should not be happening in the slightest. I stand by that 100%. And then we got the cover here. Like I said, guys, this cover is awful. It looks so photoshopped and ridiculous. Like she desperately needs some color on her lips here because she kind of looks like waxy, to be quite honest. Terrible shot, and just so overly ridiculous. And I think one of the things Meghan's going to struggle with this show are things looking too perfect, and this doesn't help matters. Because I think with everything going on in the world, the country and everything, nobody will care about the perfect Duchess in her perfect Montecito mansion. I don't think that's going to go over particularly well. So Meghan starts off with the ridiculous and absurd. Of course, Meghan is curled up in her bed with her sleeping 5-year-old son, Archie. Not going to call him Prince. That's ridiculous. On a recent winter evening in Montecito, California. Winter evening, really? It's California. It doesn't get that cold. I think winter evening and I think snowy field or something. With her phone in hand, she catches up on emails, finalizing details for the launch of her renamed lifestyle brand As Ever and her new Netflix series with Meghan. I still hate that the E is not capitalized here. It's not good grammar. Her husband, Harry, is still in Vancouver, yada, yada, yada. And she's staying close in touch with her mother, checking in on Archie and Lilibet, who had both gotten sick, and making sure they were seen by the doctors and sipping bone broth. Huh? Okay, so this is after okay. This is superfluous details we don't need because it's sort of confusing now because she's at home with her kid and then she's not at home with her kid. Now she's savoring the stillness at home with Archie as he stirs awake sleepily, telling her, "Mama, don't work too hard." Recalling the moment to People a few days later, the Duchess says, "It was the sweetest thing." Honey, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I mean, we see in the evidence of her launch how messy it has been, how disastrous it has been, that she doesn't probably work as hard as she wants people to think that she works. Because if you work really hard, if you are really up on everything, you shouldn't be having these errors. You shouldn't be. And he's probably maybe even not used to her working that much. Who knows? So it talks a bit about her brand. And she says there are tons of twists and turns even with the name. She says, I was figuring it out in real time. Yeah, because you were not smart enough to do that sort of quietly. Gotta say, this could have been done quietly. Blake Lively managed to launch her hair care brand without anybody knowing about the name. I think you could have done the same if you had, again, planned a bit better and not probably leaked a lot of the stuff herself. So she says, although she has faced intense public scrutiny at every step, Meghan says the experience has been defined by growth. I appreciate everyone who gave me the grace to make mistakes and figure it out and also be forgiving with myself through that. It's a learning curve that didn't need to happen. She has all the money and resources in the world. If I make mistakes, it's just me. I don't know what I'm doing half the time. But she has money, millions of dollars to pour into having the best brand launch ever, and she screwed it up. That's not just a learning curve. That's just sheer incompetence. It is. Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen launched The Row. They were incredibly famous at the time, and they had lived public lives since they were 9 months old on Full House. Launched The Row with a handful of products, refined their brand, refined their techniques, grew their brand slowly and steadily. And as far as I can tell, they really didn't have any missteps. Meghan Markle here has the same level of resources they did, and she bungled it 6 ways from Sunday. That is not a learning curve or grace through mistakes. That is literally not taking advice from professionals. That's the only way you can look at it, is that she was not taking advice from professionals. I don't know any other way to look at it. All right. And so we have a picture with her late dog, Guy. So this was taken in June. Okay. I love my dog, but what is her obsession with her dog and us being attached to her dog, who we have no attachment to, who is also now dead? I don't understand. From like a public relations standpoint, we can't have any connection to the dog. The dog is dead. We will see the dog, sure. But beyond that, I don't know. And you got to wonder too, if these were taken in June, so that's 9 months ago now, they had already started probably, maybe we're even a part way through filming already. So they have been sitting on this show for months. This won't take a long to edit. They've been sitting on it for months. And the reason they've been sitting on it for months is chaos after chaos behind the scenes. Just chaos after chaos after chaos. And they were probably trying desperately to get the products to launch in time with the show. And it just doesn't seem like that's going to happen. So as Meghan builds her brand, and she also continues to expand her life in Montecito. She says the Sussex name bestowed on her by Harry and Queen Elizabeth on their wedding day, who she mocked later in Netflix, holds a deeper significance than she could have imagined before motherhood. It's our shared name as a family. And I guess I hadn't realized how meaningful that would be to me until we had children. I love that it is something that Archie, Lily, H, and I all share together. It means a lot to me. She says it's part of our love story. So my question here is, so it didn't mean anything to you when you were actually just married to the dude without a kid? The name meant nothing to you with him. So did you not care about your married name? Did you not ever care about that? Because that's the way it sounds. That it didn't really matter to you until you had kids. So he was superfluous. He wasn't really necessary. It wasn't until you had the kids that, oh, it actually meant something to you. I'm sure she was just miffed that they were called Mountbatten Windsor and she couldn't take that name because only blood royals can use the name Mountbatten Windsor. And so, yeah, it's like not a big deal. And she could have named their kids, they could have gone with Lady Lily, which I would go with, or our Lord Archie, or I think he could have been the Earl of Dumbarton. But no, they had to wait until they were a prince and princess because that's the only way Meghan really cared. So it's just sort of crazy. And to say it's part of her love story, all I can think of is, so do we all get titles if we want an amazing love story? Because I mean, like that should be it. It's that she puts so much emphasis on their love story. To me, number one, it just sounds childish. It sounds childish. It sounds like she thinks they are the reincarnation of Romeo and Juliet. And then once again, that story ended badly. They both died. So that's not really a thing to really like hang your hat on. And what about Catherine and William? Cambridge is part of their love story. Wales should be part of their love story too. Like it just becomes absurd and it's just her exaggerating. What I notice about Meghan is that she exaggerates to the point of absurdity. And it makes it harder to believe. I don't believe the Sussex name is part of their love story. It's a name they were given as titles for a job that she never wanted and tried to get rid of as soon as humanly possible. That's the unfortunate reality about that name. And again, I would argue, can she tell me 5 things about Sussex without looking up anything? And has she been there beyond the one time they went and visited? Because she doesn't care about Sussex. If you have this title at this location, would you not care to actually know more about Sussex? I don't think so. So she has her new series, which includes personal passions, cooking, hostessing, decorating with her biggest audience yet. Okay. So you couldn't get an audience before, I guess, or the TIG was too small because nobody cared because you didn't really offer anything all that interesting. She says, when your children get to a certain age, when you're not just playing in the sandbox with them, but also playing in your own sandbox again, it's super joyful, she says, as a woman, a mom, and a wife, to be able to find yourself again in a way that was always present, but that you maybe couldn't put as much attention on as you now can when your kids are a little bit older. It's a wonderful feeling. So, in the pantheon or the hierarchy of Meghan's mind is more important for her to be a woman than it is for her to be a mother or a wife. When it comes to the pantheon of things, Harry's the lowest, the kids are next, but she's number one. She's number one. She's telling you that right now, that it wasn't fun for her to play in the sandbox with the kids. She was more interested in, as soon as humanly possible, once again playing in her own sandbox because she didn't find as much joy being with them as she did doing her own things. That's a way you could read that. It's a way you could read that. I think it's a legitimate way to read what she is saying here. She wanted to find herself because it was more important. As soon as the kids are old enough to somewhat take care of themselves, like she's checked out. Because I know, at least for my mom, being mom was like one of the number one things. In fact, I would say in the Christian worldview, it's actually most important to be the wife, the mom, and then the woman. Because being a wife and a mom is a huge part of being a woman in many ways. And so, yes, you have that other identity as well. But if you are in a marriage, especially, your relationship with your husband is the most important. Because if your relationship with your husband is good, then your relationship with your kids is good. You feel confident as a woman. Like there's a lot of things that in that dynamic really centers on being most focused on being a wife first, a mom second, and a woman third. She's reversed that order. And so you could read this definitely as she doesn't put as much emphasis on Harry in many ways. He is third in her level of importance. First is always herself. She always comes first. Then is the kids, then the husband. So if I was reading this and I was Harry, I would not be super enthused about that. So then it goes on. So it talks about the Netflix series and Harry visiting. Whenever Harry visited the set, he was always super polite and friendly, a crew member tells People, but it was clear he wanted this to be Meghan's moment to shine. Yeah, because he hates all this. He tried to do this for a while, and I think he grew to despise it. And he's like, honey, if you want to do it, that's fine. I'm done. I'm done. And I can't totally blame him. This was not his thing. And I would argue it's probably not really her thing either. She desperately wants to be in front of this camera, but I don't think she's particularly talented at doing it either. So he's like, I'm done. So she's returning to her roots. She launched the TIG, a blog on food, travel, and wellness, which is not totally what is going on anymore in this new show, and years ahead of the influencer boom. I mean, she was part of the influencer boom. She wasn't years ahead of it. It's just now has gotten and become more of a cachet. It was growing at that point for sure, but she was doing something or other people were already doing. She wasn't breaking the mold by any means. But as her relationship with Harry deepened, she shut it down in 2017 and later deleted her Instagram before joining royal life. How hard was it to let it go? How hard was it to disrespect your husband's family, walk out on them, trample over them? Of course, they don't ask those serious questions. Well, I love the TIG, but I certainly love my husband more. You told us, Meghan, just earlier that you loved being a woman more than you love your husband and your children. So I sort of doubt that. So that was a choice I made at the time, and I wouldn't change that for a second. But yet she's redoing it. She's literally redoing it. I just even got, while I was filming this, An Instagram story came up showing Meghan at some sort of event in NYC to meet women who were supporters of the TIG way back in the day. She's still obsessed with it. She changed it and I think let it go because she felt like she had to in the moment, or she was like, okay, gonna do this now. That way he owes me because I love the TIG so much. Because she says here, my husband met me when I had the TIG, and I see this spark in his eye when he sees me doing the thing that I was doing when he first met me. So she's going basically back to before she met Harry. That was when she was most excited, most happy, was before she met and married him. You can look at it that way because it was more important for her to do the TIG than it was to support his family, support his country, support their family, you know, do the other things that comes with being a royal. She wanted the shallow thing. She wanted the TIG. And I'm still confused here as to why she's not going with the TIG because now we have too many brand names out there. We have With Love Meghan, as ever, the TIG, American Riviera Orchard, just Meghan herself. Like all these things going on at the same time, it's confusing. It's brand confusion. And she does not need that right before the launch of her show because the TIG has nothing to do with it. It really should be something that she has forgotten about, but you can tell she's still obsessed with it. She says, even though the activities on our new show feel familiar to Meghan's longtime followers, the filming pushed her beyond the comfort zone she knew from her 7 seasons on Suits. I was never really in front of the camera like this, she says, reflecting on the legal drama. It's a time capsule for me. I saw the pencil skirt from the first episode. That's the one thing I kept, which is like, okay, so the one thing you kept, the most important thing from the show for you was the pencil skirt. Okay. When it comes to Suits LA, she says, I love that it's getting a new breath of fresh air. So we'll see how well that does. I think to a certain extent, Suits worked in the time period it did. And it was just something, a not serious show that you could binge that had all seasons together. Like that's something actually really nice when you could just watch everything of a show. That's pretty cool. And it came on Netflix right around the time of pandemic. It really was sort of an aberration. So, and I will say too, when it comes to her being in front of the camera, what sort of surprised me in the 2 episodes we saw of how she doesn't really interact with the camera. Because you have to remember in acting, you're not really supposed to interact with the camera or find the camera in that way because otherwise you're sort of breaking the fourth wall. But I think, especially in this most recent clip she got, she hardly even looks at the camera, which means she's not interacting with the audience. And especially when it comes to like cooking and those sorts of things, I really feel like interacting with the camera is a huge part of it. So we'll see how people react to it and see. So her new show isn't a traditional stand and stir format, an industry term Meghan learned. It feels as though we're just spending time together when you don't look at us, just saying, which is what it ended up being. She says of the crew's presence on the series, I'd make a recipe and say, everyone try this. And there are certain dishes where you just watch everybody flock in. And I'd say, we've run out of spoons. It ended up feeling so communal. And that's the spirit of the show. Okay, does she not realize that the crew is being paid to be there? Paid to go and test her stuff? That is their job. That is their job. Ads director and Michael Steed, who previously worked on the Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown show. Everyone has this one version of her, but she's just someone who is hustling and working and doing. I genuinely wanted to create an environment where she could relax, and I know the pressures of what she deals with on a daily basis. I was happy that we created scenes where she could tap into that part of her life. So you can actually read this a couple ways here because she's always hustling, working, and doing, but she doesn't actually come and have a decent final product. She really struggles with the final product aspect. And so that's sort of a train wreck for her that, yeah, she hustles, but she can't deliver. We saw this with her podcast show and Archetypes. I'm sure she hustled hard to get that deal with Spotify and then couldn't give them a decent product. And everything about hustling, working, and doing is always mired by her constant nitpicking and control issues, I think, and that she's micromanaging to such a degree, things can't get done well. The other thing is, he wanted to create an environment where she could relax because he knows the pressures and happy to create scenes where she could tap into that part of her life. Probably because, too, if he can make it a bit easier and for her to relax, she would be easier to work with. You can almost say here that he's subtly hinting at that she could be challenging. And the best thing for him is to get her to relax and enjoy herself. Otherwise, she would make him and everybody else miserable. And I'm sure we will hear that at some point. I'm sure we will. This is the positive happy talk PR days where they're just trying to salvage things, just trying to make it seem good enough to get people to buy in. And at some point, the shoe will drop. We saw this with Spotify. I'm sure we'll see this with Netflix too. So her signature jam will be among the offerings sent to launch this spring. Now, guys, if you remember American Riviera Orchard, we were told it would launch in the spring, then the summer, then the fall, and now the next spring. So it's been a year. It's been a solid year. And she's not launching the products with the show. And this is like so horrendously stupid. I can't even underestimate that to you because she will have some casual watchers. I mean, this will probably make it into the top 10 of Netflix, I would guess. But the thing is, those casual viewers, unless they were super engaged, will probably tune out and forget she exists and probably not be paying attention to her brand launch. They probably won't because they moved on with their lives. She has a one and done. The thing about Netflix is it's drop and go. It's drop, everything drops at once, people consume it, and then they forget it. This is actually an overall Netflix problem. They have it with a lot of their shows is that they have these amazing shows, but they drop them. And then everybody consumes them for a week, and then it disappears from the zeitgeist. It's something that they probably need to address because it would be better for them to lengthen out the discussion week over week. That way tension can build among the audience. Meghan actually would be served better to have actually a long lead time because then maybe by the time her show ends, her brand can launch. But again, she screwed it up. She screwed it up. There is no reason why this show is going on without her brand, except for the fact that Netflix was like, we can't hold on to this anymore. We need to see if this is viable. We're so sorry, but you screwed up. And so we need this to go now. So it's going. And we'll see if anybody cares about her signature jam, which I still think, again, to me is such a horrible product to launch with. And to have it be shipped or whatever, people are just not going to do that. I just don't think people are going to do that. She says also launching this spring, her new podcast with Lemonada Media, because, the first one sucked. So the best thing to do is to do another one because, the first one sucked. So the second one can't suck, right? She's back on Instagram too for the first time in years. Whoop-de-doo. Like, seriously, is Instagram all that? Like, the vacuous nonsense, the shallow, vain and vapid tone here is just ridiculous. When I was last on social media, boomerang was a thing, she says, laughing. Instagram stories didn't even exist. So it's been a minute. Yeah. Okay. Because I'm sure you didn't have like 12 social media accounts, not to mention the fact you were technically on there back in 2022, by the way. That was when that site initially launched. So yeah, and I'm sure she was checking it out. And again, that these were all shot in June makes me think they've been sitting on this story for a long time. They've been sitting on this for 9 stinking months. It's insane. Despite the intense focus on her return to Instagram, where her 2 million followers analyze everything from her outfits to the plates she uses, a small portion of them do that. A lot of people just hate watch and hate follow. Meghan doesn't identify as an influencer. Honey, that is exactly what you are. You are an influencer. You left the royal family to become an influencer again. Congratulations. All right. I see myself as an entrepreneur and a female founder. And if a brand ends up influential, then that's great. Okay, you're a business person, allegedly. You're an entrepreneur and a female founder. And you're just like, well, if the brand ends up influential, then that's great. So you don't care. You're not going to hustle every stinking second of the day to make it the most influential thing possible. When I launched this channel, which is actually 3 years ago today, I think, now that I think about it, I launched it with the idea that this is going to be successful. This is going to be really, really successful. That was my goal. That was my idea. That was my intention from the beginning. I'm going to work as if this is a business and turn it into a business. Didn't know if it would happen, but it ended up being very successful. And I think part of that was the intention. If you see this as, well, I'll just see if this ends up in being influential, then it won't be because you're not putting all your effort and emphasis into this. And again, we see this reflected in the mess of her brands. Her brands are a mess, and it reflects that she did not take the intention to do this well. Although the show paints a picture of domestic bliss with Meghan slow cooking berries from her garden, she doesn't consider herself a trad wife, shorthand for a traditional wife. Yeah, because in the pantheon of her identities, a wife is the lowest among them. I like being able to do a hybrid. She says, Chinese food delivery is a favorite, but even when I get takeout, I will try to plate it beautifully, she says. She encourages others to strive for balance, not perfection. When she stinking takes takeout and puts it on plates. Like China, she's getting out the China for Chinese takeout. There's something to the imperfections of life that make things perfect, not making things perfect and plating them beautifully. If I go and get Panda Express, I'm just going to get stinking Panda Express and eat it in the stinking styrofoam thing. Now, if I feel in the need to or whatever, maybe I'll put it out on a plate, but I don't care. Why? Because it's not something to be put out and plated beautifully. It's just takeout. It's just takeout. Treat it like takeout. When you treat it beyond that, you look sort of ridiculous. The series is about doing what you can do and doing it with love. But what if she puts more emphasis on plating it beautifully rather than doing it with love? What in the hierarchy of Meghan Markle's needs is first, the beautiful plate or doing it with love? Because I would bet you as we watch this series, you'll notice a trend that's more important for her to look for things to look well than for things to be well behind the scenes. The outlook was first noticed by a friend who visited the set and came up with the name for the show. Their takeaway was they were so happy to see me as myself. This is very Hollywood. This is very Hollywood. Somebody said something else similar. It's just so Hollywood. Oh, see you as yourself. So are you not yourself other times? That's my question. She said, it's like your love letter to all the things you've loved to do. And if you're signing off a love letter, it's with love, Meghan. It felt right. And I love that my friend helped create it. Okay. The problem is, Meghan, again, this goes back to business brand things. You have too many names. You have With Love, As Ever, American Riviera Orchard, Meghan, and The Tig. Too many names. Should have I don't know why didn't you say As Ever? As Ever Meghan. Why didn't you take that name? Why didn't you name your brand With Love Meghan? Okay, receiving that kind of feedback from her friends who have quietly supported her throughout the challenges of the recent years has been meaningful for Meghan. You have to imagine my friends' experience through the past few years. They spend all this time with me at home and at their houses or at dinner. For them to see who they know to be reflected on screen, it brought them a lot of joy. Okay, that's very self-obsessed. That it's more important for her friends to see her portrayed as she believes she is on screen. Like, that's just dumb. That's just dumb. That just shows somebody who's massively insecure and very frustrated that the rest of the world is not as shallow and vain and vapid as her friends are and see through her facade. I can only imagine that all her friends are kind of in on it together. Like they're all kind of narcissistic. And so they all prop each other up. And so, yeah, they ignore the bad things and just see the good things. And they raise those things up. When the reality is there's not great things going on behind the scenes. She doesn't treat her staff well. And that's what's getting out time and time again. The world sees the real Meghan, and that is what upsets her. That's what upsets her, is that we see through the facade. So she has her private world in Montecito. The Montecito community, who have gotten to know her from school drop-offs and playdates with Archie and Lily, have become essential. Again, I feel like that's a bit ridiculous because in the cut, it was very clear that she was not regularly expected at the drop-off or kids at school. And then she also did something really weird, was that she like crawled into like a bouncy house and was like telling other parents to get in there with her. It was really weird. We hosted a little camp because winter break was long, she says. We had several days with different families at our home, and we were able to get to know the parents better, and all the kids could play. Harry and Meghan set up an optical course and face painting. It's a dream, she says. But I also know that being part of community means putting effort into it. I just find this sort of weird, to be quite honest. It was like she was trying so desperately to get people to like her that they set up this camp and they like begged and pleaded for people to come. And so they could try to ingratiate themselves into other families. It's sort of weird. It's sort of odd. I feel like it's not something normal people do. I don't really remember that as a kid. We just went around and hung out with people who we enjoyed hanging out with. But if they have different families coming to their home all the time, are they really there because they want to be there, or they were invited or felt forced to go, or what have you? It's sort of weird. And it didn't seem like different families. So these aren't friends. So they're inviting random strangers to their house to come and play so they could get to know the parents better. It's weird. It's a little weird. In the process, Meghan says Montecito has become protective of the Sussexes. Once you know us, I think you want us to have the same normalcy as parents and for our children as they do, despite however unique our situation is. But then you go to People magazine and brag about stuff. Seriously, you can't have it both ways. You can't say, oh, you want privacy and normalcy, and then sell yourself to People magazine. That's not how this works. For Meghan, normal looks like nights out with Harry and pals. We just go to a lot of dinners, and not just in people's homes or private homes. We just go into a restaurant. I really love that we can just have fun. So they go out quite a bit, I guess. So what about the kids? Again, interesting question. Again, another photo from June of 2024. So they've been sitting on this a long time. Her friendships with other moms have grown beyond school ties into deeper connections. I have a couple of girlfriends up here. These are stay-at-home moms and working women with normal jobs, not in the public eye. We went from just connecting through our kids to having girls' nights out or doing Pilates together. I don't totally buy all that. One confidant recalls how they first connected when Archie and her daughter became fast friends at school. Meghan reached out with a voicemail inviting her to a play date. I wonder if she said, "Come over to the Montecito Palace so you can have a play date with Prince Archie." Yeah, I could see her do that. You can see that as a unit, a friend says of the Sussexes. They're all very connected. After her son's recent surgery, the friend recalls Meghan sent a bouquet of balloons and stuffed octopus from Archie and Lily with a handwritten note that said, "We thought you could use a hug with 8 arms." Okay, that's dumb. I'm sorry, that's really dumb. And when Meghan was invited to her low-key birthday party at home, she showed up despite not knowing anyone and chatted with the other women about mom stuff and life, says a pal. It was fun and natural. She was very comfortable, just chilling. Again, this incessant need to try to make Meghan Markle seem as normal as possible and as friendly as possible. We know how she's treated her family. So it doesn't matter how she treated these strangers. It matters how she treats her family. And granted, families have bust ups. I 100% like that happens. But it seems like Meghan is more concerned with looking good to the rich women of Montecito than she does, let's say, seeing her father before he dies or allowing her children to see, King Charles as he is sick. She doesn't care about that, but she cares about making friends with these Montecito ladies who she's hoping, I'm sure, have more money than she does and that she can mooch off them in some way. Meghan embraces life in her community, whether solo or with friends. I go to yoga classes that sometimes have 40 to 50 people in them, and I just walk in, I'm like, "Hi," she says, laughing. So this is what I wonder. It's like, why would you be walking in, like, if they're doing the yoga, why would you walk in and just go, "Hi"? So, I just picture in my mind her having, like, a cadre of bodyguards as she puts her blanket or mat or whatever there in, like, the front or maybe in the back, and they're, like, guarding her as she does her yoga, and so she's, like, very obvious. Of course, at the beginning, that felt like a lot. By the way, I think anybody walking into a yoga class with 50 people and everyone looks up, it's going to feel a little uncomfortable. Okay, this is where I got it. Everyone looks up. So is she literally walking in after the class begins with her 6 bodyguards? That's an exaggeration, by the way, and making a nuisance or attention seeking herself to make everybody pay attention to her. I love it. It's the best. I missed it. So, again, for a woman who's so security conscious, there's a yoga class in Montecito somewhere that Meghan Markle attends. She just told you. I didn't. She did. The family's sprawling estate is their sanctuary, which is why Meghan chose to film her show in a nearby rental that echoes their own space. Except for the fact that her kitchen is very dark and I don't think conductive to good filming. I wanted to protect that safe haven. We're a close-knit family, except for, the entire extended family. And I love these moments, putting Lily down for a nap, having lunch together, having sacred time together at the end of the day. Our kitchen is where mama just cooks for the family. And with a crew of 80 plus people, that's a lot of people to have in your house. You don't need 80 people to film her stinking show. Like, I can imagine you could get by with 10 or 20. 80? You really need 80 people to film that? That's crazy. Once again, in June, the show also gives Meghan a chance to put her kid-friendly meals to the test. I'm up before my kids are, so I'm normally up at 6:30. I believe most parents are, Meghan. And then I get them up and dressed for the day, and we go downstairs. I love making breakfast for my family. My husband and Archie both love fried eggs. There's a lot of that bacon around here, and sometimes you don't have to time for that, and you just put a frozen waffle in the toaster and call it a day, and there's no shame in that either. We don't care. We don't care. I feel like she's just telling us all sorts of things we don't care about. Not surprisingly, Meghan identifies food as one of her love languages. Even before I was a mom, I loved being able to nurture in that way. So I read some of this in a previous video, so I won't really go over this again. But I just think it's interesting that she is focused on this idea of mama meals. And so it's like, is it more important for her to cook than it is to connect with her kids? Because yes, cooking is a big part of being a mom, a wife, a member of a household anywhere. Like, that's a big part of it. But is it more important for her to enjoy her aspect of cooking than it is to spend time with the kids? Just wondering, just putting that out there. While she may not have filmed inside her home, she found ways to incorporate home life into the show, filming in their chicken coop, garden, and orchard. Nobody cares. Archie did the filming clapboard. Sweet moments, she says. They would also come with my husband and visit me on set. And I love that my children were able to watch me working and see the balance of that and understand what mama does and is working to create and share because their dad doesn't want to work. It was really special because up until then, they hadn't seen me at work. So do they not like follow any of the stuff you guys do? Do you guys not show them any videos? The crew member recalls how Archie and Lily would run up to Megan on set. She was super attentive and doting on them. We would give them headphones so they could listen to the audio. Now, to be fair, that could be 100% true. But if she's trying to address claims that maybe they're not super attentive parents, that could just be part of the performance. What they do in front of people and on camera doesn't really matter as much as what happens behind the scenes, stuff we don't know. The only actually way you sort of can have an indication of what's happening behind the scenes is seeing the family interact in public. That's why we know, I think, that the Wales' kids are being raised pretty well. Why? Because we see how they interact with their parents and others in public. And it's very normal. It's very natural interactions. The kids aren't perfect. The kids have fun, but the kids, Louis, was a little bit of a disrespectful child at the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. And that is a normal kid behavior, though. Catherine dealt with it well. And you could see that she is an attentive mother and one that is used to dealing with children who sometimes act out because she was not phased in the slightest by it. And when you have Charlotte having her little mini meltdown on the tarmac in Germany, she was not phased by it. She got down, she talked to her daughter, she talked her down, she sort of addressed her, I think, in a stern manner. So we see that reflected in the kids' behavior that they're very respectful of their parents, they're very respectful of others. They waited for their mother to come off the carriage at the recent Trooping the Color, and they just don't seem to act up, except for just sort of the normal exuberance of children. And they're very well behaved. So we don't know about Harry and Meghan behind the scenes really at all with the kids. And so what this person is saying just doesn't really mean that much because without us as the public being able to see things, doesn't really matter. That's why it's better for her not to address anything about the kids because then again, that raises questions. And she claims not to want to, have to give her kids on a silver platter to the British people, but she's certainly giving them on a silver platter to People magazine. That's Meghan. I hope that when they get old enough, they feel really proud of what they were part of, that they were part of the beginning of this with me. So it's more important for her that they feel proud of being part of her show and her on Netflix than they do of themselves, of her as a mother, what have you. It's more important for her to be part of this business thing than it is for her to be part of her family. Like, that's kind of how you could read this. Should she have them be proud of how well her and her husband's relationship is going? Like, why is that more important to her that they see her start this series and film this series than it is for them to, I think, have other personal achievements they see of their parents? See them go through struggles and come out stronger. That makes you proud as a child to see your parents, go through something challenging and come out the other side stronger. But no, it's more important for her that they see her trying to make a buck. Now, granted, it's important, I think, for your kids to see you work. I do think that's important. At the same time, though, it just has this very shallow feeling. And Harry's not really a part of it, you could say. So Meghan says having her daughter on the website as ever was especially meaningful for Meghan. But don't talk about the kids, don't look at the kids, but oh, look at my kids. Oh, I'm so excited to have my daughter on the page. Who cares about Archie? Doesn't seem like she cares that much about him. And again, I'm just saying this because she seems to put a lot of emphasis on girl issues, never anything on boy issues. So she says, being able to have my own little girl, as I spent much of my life championing the rights of girls and women, be able to do this as a multi-generational story. Archie is, of course, included in that. My husband is, of course, included in that. Are you sure, Meghan? It's hard to read. It's hard to get that. It's hard to get that based on what you're saying. But I love the heritage feeling of it and knowing this is something that I could create in front of my daughter and teach her what it's like to be a working mom. This is something that hopefully can be part of her legacy too. Oh, so it's more important for her to be a working mom than it is for, let's say, for her to be a traditional wife and stay at home. Just putting that out there. Life in Montecito has settled into a comfortable rhythm. When she's not filming, afternoons are marked by what they lovingly call day dates, where they share a quiet lunch together in true parent fashion. The evenings include nightcap recaps, unwinding with a drink as they chat about the day and make their lunch boxes. Seriously. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. I think all parents in this phase with kids the same age know it's rinse and repeat. Okay. If there's time, they'll catch up on TV together. We love Shrinking. We just finished Black Doves. We're excited for the new season of White Lotus. Don't really care. Reflecting on the past 5 years since our move, Megan acknowledges how much is different. 5 years ago, Archie was only 8 or 9 months old. And so my life has changed so much. She got the girl of what she always wanted because it doesn't seem like she's all that interested in Archie. Welcoming a newborn, being pregnant while raising a toddler, and now raising both Archie and Lily. Anyone who has children will tell you it's a huge evolution as a woman during that time. And as she looks ahead to the next 5 or 10 years, she's open to what's to come. Can you imagine? This is just the beginning. Life is full of surprises. And oh my gosh, in 10 years, Archie will be driving. Okay. I noticed that she didn't really mention her husband a whole lot there. Yes, they had their little day dates and their nightcaps, but when it comes to the future, she's thinking of the kids and Archie driving and the business, and life is full of surprises. So, does that mean a potential divorce? Maybe. So, what can we glean from that article besides the vacuous nonsense? Is I think a woman pretty obsessed with herself. It was all me, 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 me. And I just find that a little sad. It's very clear that to her, the most important thing is getting something like the TIG off the ground again. That's the most important thing to her. She put a lot of emphasis there. And yes, that's part of why you do PR for something, but it's just so incredibly clear that the thing she looks forward to, the thing she's happiest with, is things that don't really revolve around family, to be quite honest. Is to be seen being the perfect host, the perfect community member, the perfect parent. But when you read between the lines, when you read what she's really saying in the pantheon of Meghan Markle's degrees of importance, it's woman, then it's mother, then it's being a wife. And granted, yes, if you are not married, like I am not, obviously woman comes first because you are a woman. But at the same time, too, isn't it more important too to be a daughter, a sister, an aunt, or whatever? Isn't that all part of being a woman? And isn't that as important as being a woman itself? Megan just doesn't really make that clear. It's so clear that Megan serving Megan is what Megan wants. Beyond that, other things are nice, but Megan wants to focus on her. That's why she created this show. That's why she's hoping it's successful, is because she wants as much attention on herself as humanly possible. And yeah, she'll get a decent amount of attention the next couple of days, but will it be all good? I think it's probably going to just turn distinctly sour after a point, because when you're so obsessed with yourself, that comes across on camera. And I don't think people will be too receptive to that, especially if, as I anticipate, she's going to come across as really out of touch and unclear who her audience is. Because if your audience is, let's say, the Goop crowd, then you shouldn't be advertising to everyone. If your crowd is the ladies of Montecito, you shouldn't be advertising to everyone. If your audience is, wealthy upper middle class women, then I don't know if this is your audience either. It's so unclear who her audience is because I don't think she knows. Because really, at the end of the day, Megan's audience is of one, herself. She wants to please herself. And because of that, I just don't have high hopes for all this ridiculousness. But we shall see, because it's going to launch soon here, guys. Oh boy, buckle up. It's going to be a wild week. So, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I shall talk to you again very soon. Bye.